In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
Welcome back to another pointless automotive podcast starring your favorite host of this podcast, Frank and Chadwick again. There's no other host. I guess we have to be your favorites. But
I'm no one's favorite.
how you doing today, my friend?
Oh boy, relatively turgid. How are you?
Fair to middling. So
Okay, excellent.
Good.
No, that sounds good. Oh, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. That was it. Just the check-in edition.
Yeah, catch me outside. But
That's right.
dude, today I want to talk about something we haven't talked about, and we did have a truck episode. Go truck yourself.
Truck March.
But
Truck
this is
month.
this is adjacent to that. SUVs, my friend, and how they can actually be cool. I think currently SUVs are the brunt of most car jokes because they're everywhere. The modern automotive landscape is dominated by SUVs. And for the sake of this episode, we're going to avoid pickup trucks. We're just going to talk about SUVs, purely SUVs, because here it is, man. Right from the get-go, SUVs are an evolution of pickup trucks. All the original SUVs were pickup trucks with a cab on the rear. Eventually, almost all were two doors to start. So that's how we started. Modern SUVs are just big cars. Let's be honest, lifted cars in comparison to the first modern SUVs. So
yeah,
let's talk them up, man. Let's go over it. We could talk about some retro ones that were damn cool, and how they can be cool, because I think everyone has an SUV now, so it's kind of hard to stand out when it's popular. But how can you still be cool with an SUV today, Frank, in your opinion?
Oh boy. I think the way you be cool with an SUV is you get one of the classics, right? And what is probably peak SUV? I mean, peak SUV as far as coolness, selection, just companies were trying new stuff, right? Like probably late 80s, early 90s. I feel like it's probably peak SUV when it comes to like interesting, cool offerings. Most stuff, or at least a lot of it anyways, was still body on frame, was still truck based. A lot of them were just, kind of all of them for a lot of it was just like, hey, we'll get our truck and we'll chop the frame down and we'll put a 2 or 4 door SUV chassis on it instead, and here's our SUV offering. Now it's like, hey, we have this global platform that is a unibody family sedan that we have for a compact version, a mid-size version, and then a bigger version, and then we add 1.8 inches of ground clearance, and now it's an SUV.
Yeah, all unibody construction, all 4-door plus.
Right. Which for most, like, if there's a reason why those things have become so popular, it's because they're great jack of all trades for 90% of the global population.
Yeah.
We're unique and we're special and we're not that 90%.
Bucking that trend, my friend. But yeah, modern SUVs make sense. But so do historic SUVs, because to me,
that's how.
Even more so than a truck, right? So an SUV is able to usually deal with the elements because you have a covered cargo section, which is huge. As long as it's a big enough cargo section, it gets the job done of a pickup truck while having your load covered. Better than being covered in your load. You carry people, you can carry cargo. It's just the argument's there. Like, just like you said, the modern unibody kind of car SUVs are popular because they get the job done. They get so many jobs done effectively and efficiently. These old SUVs are just the same, man. Just wonderful tools for the job. Very good. You can apply them to many use cases where they can plug and play. And probably one of the biggest things I'm going to bring up is, like, cars, 80s and 90s cars, if they have any kind of enthusiastic following, have become pretty pricey. I think we can both agree that we've watched prices over the past even 5 years escalate to like just levels we never saw it going to. I feel like SUVs, for the most part, have fallen behind their car counterparts. And do you feel the same about that, Frank? Because I feel strongly for that. I think
generally, I think there's a handful of notable exceptions.
Right.
Grand Wagoneers have been pretty hot for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
And so compared to any like what AMC product of the 80s, like no, like it's far more valuable than any other, even like an Eagle, which is cool and like SUV adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's an exception. The two-door GMT 400 like Blazers and Yukon GTs, those
Those are
are worth
crazy.
more than the truck versions, but not even all the truck versions. Like if you have your 454 SS, that's a more
Mm-hmm.
valuable truck. Um, so I would say the same thing. Like Ford Bronco is probably more valuable than an F-150, like perfect condition to perfect condition. But then if you have a Lightning,
Right.
out the door.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I would say generally speaking, for the most part, it's there's you can still get some really cool stuff for not a ton of money. Maybe first gen Forerunner is the exception there,
Mm,
but there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. Second gen Forerunners you can still get, even with the Toyota tax that's out there. I
sure.
mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff. First gen Pathfinders, um, Isuzu Troopers, I've heard.
Yeah.
Uh, and you can have fun with them. I don't know. You know which one? How about which one is like? Is there any specific one? Any era really? That like is you've got a soft spot for?
Well, obviously, I've always liked the Trooper since my father had one when we were growing up.
Yeah,
And I have a pretty sweet one that I'm bringing back to life behind me.
looks
I
good.
think the Trooper is that's kind of a sweet spot vehicle because it came out in the 80s through the 90s. It was Japanese, so the build quality was there during their really good economic bubble period. And it
Yep.
was like a no nonsense, no frills kind of like get out there and get work done kind of truck, which has lent itself to having a very long lifespan as a truck. These trucks always have mileage. I have 283,000 miles on the clock of mine, and
That's it.
it just goes. They do have some head gasket issues. What doesn't from that period? But no statistical outlying crippling conditions. They're just good, solid trucks and no features to fail, right? Like we talk about plenty of times. There's no
Yeah.
feature overkill, but the Isuzu Trooper stands out to me. Pretty much on an even plane are the early Monteros. I find those to
Right.
be equally attractive and really undervalued on the market. You can score a Trooper like $2,000. I scored mine behind me. You can get a Montero not too much off of that, and you can have two very good selectable low range 4-wheel drive gearboxes and
Right.
really, I think, cool looking vehicles. You know,
Yeah. I mean, that's like the boxy SUV thing
oh,
is.
so
Oh, it
good.
is back, baby. Like
Ford Bronco, baby. That's
the
it.
new
Look at
the
the
new
modern Ford
Bronco,
Bronco.
the new Bronco, the new like Land Cruiser Prado slash Lexus GX that we're getting, that
Yep.
is super boxy. The new Defender to a certain extent,
To an
it's not
extent, yeah.
super boxy, but it's pretty darn boxy. And it is absolutely back. And I'm curious what that will do to rides such as your Trooper, where it's like, is it are we going to see values of those kind of bump up as it's like the new stuff is there and there's going to be this bull run on the hot new boxy SUV? Is it going to bring some of the older stuff back up that people looked over for a little bit? I don't know.
Right.
Um, those are cool. I certainly agree. And to some extent, like I feel like a lot of people, like if you pointed to a first gen Montero and called it a Trooper, and you pointed to an early Trooper and called it a Montero, people would just be like, "Oh, cool!" Like
Good
they're so like
boxing. Yeah.
interchangeable in people's minds. I will say, what I think is really fun on the Troopers, and I don't know why it's a silly thing, but like the split open rear gate,
It's
where it's
awesome.
like it's
I
like
love it.
two thirds of it is one big out, and then one third is like the smaller swing out door. It's kind of a cool. It feels like a gimmick, but I don't know. It's cool. I think it's sweet.
It's cool. I definitely like it more because you can you don't have to be worried about your hatch hitting anything. It opens straight out, so you don't need
Yep.
to hit walls or anything. I think it's good for that. And also, man, these boxy designs, like I was using it like a cargo van like a few days ago. I had just the driver's seat out. Everything else can come out of the vehicle. And I put like just tons. I jammed it full of stuff, and it's basically and effectively a cargo van. It's like the design is fantastic. It's just man, they do look good. I had some other mentions I wanted to mention. You did hit the S10 Blazer Jimmy combination.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic, but are appreciating. I'm still a big sucker for Geo Trackers, Suzuki Sidekicks, a little smaller of an SUV, but nonetheless very potent, very off-road capable, still body on frame. The early Ford Explorers.
Yeah. Yeah, those are cool. Go Eddie Bauer, two-door sport
Manual. Yep.
manual. Those are cool. I'm surprised we haven't seen, maybe there just aren't any left, but I'm surprised we haven't seen a run on those because it's kind of those things were so ubiquitous in the early 90s when they came out, and they came out to replace the Bronco 2, which was two-door only, Ranger based, as was the Explorer to a certain extent.
Yep.
I've got a soft spot for the Bronco 2. I don't know why.
Oh, I like them too.
On all accounts, they kind of suck. But they've got that like rear quarter glass that kind of curves up over the roof line a little bit, and you got that like egg crate grill. I don't know. I've always had a soft spot, and I think those weren't those pretty kind of notoriously tippy.
I
Like
think they tried to push that.
Fail.
Yeah,
the
independent
boost test.
independent testing revealing it's not as bad as those obviously tests to push against it, but I'm with you on that. I love the Bronco too. It's kind of like the S10 Blazer versus the K5. I think the S10 is the better truck in my opinion, but I do like a good K5 is nice too. But early Jeep Cherokees, the first gen Jeep Cherokee is absolutely stunning. Whenever I see one of those in the wild, especially in a bright color, I saw one in yellow, like a faded yellow, and it looked freaking badass. And red, they look good. I think red's a good color for these boxy SUVs too.
Yeah, and I do like those early XJs. What's cool is I don't know why. I feel like probably for most people it's the uglier version, but I like, as you said, the early ones.
So boxy.
They had like the stacked headlight style one, which was weird, but like I kind of like it. I don't know why. And then you had, I mean, they'll kind of, you can't miss with those. Those are cool. But then they had like on the early ones, they were more like 70s, like the interiors were more like 70s feeling, like they had like cool pattern cloth seats.
Yep.
And I think for like a couple of years you can get like a Peugeot diesel, like a 2.4 diesel.
That's right.
There's just some weird stuff with like AMC when AMC was in charge, where there was just like the AMC 4-cylinder or the 242-6, which was bomb proof, and then later the 4-liter. Those cars, they made them for so damn long that, and it's a Jeep, and so they had problems, but they had a cult following. So every problem has a cheap and easy solution. Those are like, if you wanted to like just like an entry into that world, like some of them can be pricey. But if you get a 4-cylinder one, get an earlier one, with a little bit of patina, they're easy to work on. They're easy to find parts for because they made them forever. Those are genuinely cool.
But it's like, it's scarcity though, Frank. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm always looking at these kind of older trucks. Like I can find a few Isuzu Troopers for sale, but 9 times out of 10, they're not running. They've been sitting for a while, and it takes a bit to bring a truck back. But like these were not rare. Like the Isuzu Trooper wasn't rare. Those Jeep Cherokees, very much not rare. Early Explorers, hundreds of thousands were produced. But we had cash for clunkers. We had a depreciation curve that these things bottomed out, and they're still, even when you find a drivable one, you're not going to pay more than $6,000, $7,000 for a sorted one. So it's like the value isn't there for folks to like maintain. Like I'm an idiot. Like I dumped how many, probably 100 hours at this point into this Trooper that I paid $2,000 for, but not other people are going to do that. So what happens is they just go to the junkyard, they get parted out, they get destroyed or left in a field to rot. So they're actually getting super hard. Like try to find a 1st-gen Explorer that's like manual and drivable. You just can't.
Yeah, because they were for so long, and even to some extent still just a straight up appliance. Like that's how you got the kids back and forth to soccer practice, and they throw their junk in the back. They'd stuff their junk in the trunk, and break the trim and it's a slippery slope. And once it starts getting a little bit more beat up and a little bit more tired, and then they were handed down. These were handed down in droves. Like how many of those first gen Explorers was somebody's first car?
Yeah, some
Like
16-year-old bumper carring it in a parking lot.
yeah, or like GMT 400 um Yukons and Tahoes and those XJ Cherokees and
Yep.
first gen Pathfinders, which I love.
God, they all look so good.
I would
We
love
should.
to get a two-door one. You can get one with like a lot of miles, but like reasonably well maintained, um, running well for like $2,800.
It's
4 grand buys
ridiculous.
you like a really nice one, and you pull up anywhere in
Great.
one of those, like a really clean one, and like respect. Like people will be like, "Oh my God, I can't remember. I haven't seen one of those in years, and so clean." And yeah, you might have like yours 280,000 miles on it, but they're pretty stout trucks.
Really stout.
Especially
Yeah.
if you get with a manual, those first gen Pathfinders 8 transmissions. Um, Famously the same transmission in the Subaru SVX.
Hmm.
Who knew?
Also, yeah, not known for its long longevity.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're right though, and I'm Mr. Four door because it makes sense, especially with a kid. You know this as well. But there's something about these early SUVs and two-door guys that just
yeah,
it just works because I think it's because these were still trucks. These are the trucks just more recently transformed into SUVs, and I think that's why it works. The dimensions are right. With my Trooper, it has the giant school bus like sliding glass, and I just
yep.
throw my kid through there, and it's like a sense of occasion, really, every time we go for an adventure
I
because
just toss him through the
I just
window. It's
fucking
cool.
chuck him in there, throw the
Alley-oop.
fishing gear in the back, kid in the back, we're good. But he likes it. It's like super fun to load him through there,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just cool as hell, man. It's just, and I do think they do look better with two doors. I think these early ones. I think the Explorer was the one that came with four doors to start, right? They didn't get the two doors
yes,
until later. But all
yeah.
these other guys that started in the 80s, much like the Trooper, started off purely as two doors and then added four doors as a feature.
Or that's like the power move is you get the two-door second gen Forerunner, which they only made for I believe the first 2 years and in very scarce numbers. And there was one at Radwood this year, Radwood NorCal.
Yep.
But you never see those in the wild anymore. You used to see them occasionally. Like now they are all gone.
Yeah,
Um,
the later run SUVs, I know the Blazer, S10 Blazer for sure is super rare in a two-door at the later runs. And I know the Troopers are actually there was
XR2.
yeah, the Trooper, same deal, came very rarely with two doors at this point. But this truck was way ahead of its time for a tough, cheap truck. I mean, I had four-wheel disc brakes, which
Mhm.
Mustang GTs didn't have an 88. I have electronic fuel injection, which a lot of cars weren't necessarily
Yeah,
having in the 80s. It's got a really nice engine, 2.6 liter four cylinder. Everything's simple. It's just a
yeah.
simple truck, man. It's
Easy to
like,
work on.
yeah, easy to work on, plenty of space under the hood, enough power, gets down the road just fine. Four-wheel drive works great, manual locking hubs. It's just like one of those trucks. If you guys bring these trucks back, you can literally keep this truck for the rest of your life and actually enjoy it.
Yeah, and shout out to last week. You don't even have to worry about protecting your motor vehicle from an EMP pulse.
Nope.
It's just gonna work, baby. Nuclear holocaust, bring it, dog. Got a trooper.
Just roll the windows up.
Trooper. Exactly. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, they make really compelling first enthusiast cars for somebody because
Yeah.
the entry is pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
The parts are generally available and pretty cheap.
Right.
They're easy to work on, and if you run into something that you decide you can't or don't want to do, you can have somebody work on it pretty cheap. Um, and what's cool is because I mean these are all cars that we grew up in, or they
Mhm.
were hand-me-down cars, as I mentioned before. And so, people our age generally like have an affinity for these cars, like the nostalgia and the oh my god, like I grew up in one of these, or my aunt had one of these, or you know my dad rolled one of these on his 11th DUI or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, like people have a relationship with these cars, and so when you pull up to the Cars and Coffee in a minty Trooper or a even something a little bit newer like a perfect Durango RT,
Mhm.
like those are cool and people will respect it. And it's a good way to start like turning wrenches and that enthusiasm, other people seeing your car and smiling
Yeah.
and giving you the thumbs up, like that will like empower the new enthusiast to go out and then like, hey, like not only my exec people are happy to see me. The thing is a smile maker. Let me turn some more wrenches on it. Let me fix that broken OEM, stereo, whatever. And just keep building on it. It's cool. And yeah,
Yeah.
we more people need to get on board. I need one. I need to sell 15 cars first, but once I do
Yeah.
that,
Nostalgia is a very powerful force, like whether it's something you had in the past in your family or you saw growing up and you always wanted, and once they become affordable and you find that one, I say go for it. I'm always an advocate. I always need a truck to be around, whether I'm doing like home improvement stuff or whatever else. I love having a truck. And the perfect argument is a truck you paid $2,000 for,
yeah,
right? It's already paid for itself. And it's the condition it's in. I'll get out for a profit if I had to sell it, but I don't have any plans to get rid of this thing. It's just an adventure truck. Like I said, it's cheap
yeah,
enough where I'm not worried about. It doesn't have to be perfect. I can throw a bunch of junk in it and go hiking, adventuring. I don't care if it gets dirty. Cares? It's a truck.
yeah,
And it's just cool about that. But that's also like a really good experience because when you're driving it, you do feel special. You're like, I'm in this cheap truck that could do anything and go anywhere, and it's gone everywhere in the past 30 something years. So it's
yeah.
just cool. But the market's like, you got to find them. They're hard to find, but in the market, the prices are cheap. It's just like I feel like they come for sale, and if it's anything worth buying, people flock to it and grab it so
Yeah.
quick, right? And that's going not just troopers, that's anything we talked about on this list. I think if a good old SUV comes up, Montero, regardless, something like that, a good clean Montero comes up first gen, there's going to be people gunning for that truck.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's here locally where stuff doesn't rust.
Correct.
Especially
Yeah.
this Japanese stuff. Um, boy, howdy, that stuff like to rust.
Those forerunners, those early forerunners were
Early forerunners.
notorious. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of them. Um, and they check all the boxes plus a few extras, right? Because they had crazy, some of them came with crazy graphics, and you had the removable top, and you had the little inclinometer on the dash, and the Toyota tax, and they had a freaking turbo one. Um, like there's some extra added level of cool there. I mean, which is partly why they command such a premium. It's kind of
Right.
those are kind of the ones that are almost unattainable for like a really nice one. Like
Sure.
you've got to get a clapped one. But yeah, they don't exist outside of like find a clean one of those in the Rust Belt. No, no. And that's
Nope.
where a lot of these places where they've been salting roads since the 80s, like that's where a lot of these were sold.
Yep.
And so that's another factor in why, we don't see a lot of these is because, they rusted away. They were in salty, snowy, grimy locales, which is why they were built.
Right.
Which is why we don't have a lot of them. And so yeah, finding part of the reason why finding them even out here is harder, let alone yeah, if you're in Cleveland trying to find a clean, anything at
Yeah.
all.
Or the Northeast where I'm from. I mean, Jesus, things
Yeah,
last like 5 to 7 years. You're already seeing rust on new vehicles.
yeah,
These things just weren't made to last in that kind of condition. But like you said, these were bought in areas that saw weather. These are four-wheel drive capable, very capable. They are trucks. Let's be honest.
yeah.
These are freaking trucks. So they were built for like seasons, rain, snow, that kind of crap. And unfortunately, that just claimed them earlier. But if you guys can find these and like, I'm not Mr. Truck guy all the time. I love trucks and what they stand for, but there is a cool factor with these old SUVs because they do check a lot of boxes for me anyway. Like aesthetically, I find them gorgeous. I think the boxy design is timeless and it just stands
Mhm.
out. Like when you see a nice, clean, like boxy old SUV from the 80s and 90s roll by, it stands out in today's like super angular, like,
Yeah.
bulbous kind of raised car SUV landscape. So I think that's a huge thing. And for me, maintenance, like once you do all your routine maintenance and get these things like roadworthy, you basically just drive them, and you can drive them hard.
I don't know why, and this seems completely silly and nonsensical. But doing it, and let me know if I'm alone on this. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you're like you're an idiot. Maybe both. Two things can be equally true.
Yeah.
Um, for some reason, I
Idiot.
feel like
I'm done.
Thank you. Well, see you on the next episode of.
Catch you later, guys.
So I find routine maintenance on a truck or an SUV for some reason, feels more rewarding to do than on like a sports car. Like on a sports car, it's just like I'd rather be spending this time making it go faster, but I have to do the maintenance stuff. On
Right.
a truck, on an SUV, right? I feel like I don't know why it's this weird like throwback pseudo masculine bullshittery, but like I feel like it's like oh I feel like a grandpa like maintaining the old truck and
That's what it
greasing the
is.
wheel and putting it all together and it shutting the hood and then kind of patting it on all right, you're good for another 100,000 miles, and then your hands are all greasy and you got the greasy rag and you put it in the corner and then you crush a pack of Winstons or something. I don't know, but like it feels more rewarding doing the general maintenance on one of these older SUVs and trucks than it does on a sports car. And that seems stupid and silly and made up, but like, is that a thing?
Well,
Do you
no,
agree?
because the thing is, because these are trucks, right? This is a real friggin' truck. Like I could pull up with the trooper next to someone with a Raptor and they'd be like, oh, cool car, like cool car, cool little truck or whatever. And I could be like, well, I could have like a diarrhea spouting kid. I could have, mud encrusted interior. I can spray it down with a hose. I could, roll this thing 3 times and it would still be fine. And like your $70,000-$80,000 truck, because most trucks are so expensive right now, like real trucks.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's something about that. Like a truck should, in my opinion, remember when trucks used to be cheap? Let's bring that up, because they used to be for working. These are still that, man. And that's why. And then, like you said, the maintenance goes longer because this thing isn't feature laden. These trucks are just simple. You got a power plant, a drivetrain, usually 4 tires and an interior, like nothing to like write about. It's just the little things you do, you feel that difference and you see it in the longevity of the vehicle. So I think it does feel like your maintenance and your routine stuff just goes a long way, and they're more accessible. There's way more space under the hood. I don't know. It's just, you're right. It's like an old fashioned, kind of feel from these things, man.
Yeah. Like I feel like the old should have retired 15 years ago, but can't afford to farmer who's just like working on his tractor and like keeping old Betsy going, and it's been on that same farm since 1959 and just doing the maintenance on the, but it's just like I don't know, an Isuzu Trooper or an old 4Runner or whatever. Like it feel, I don't know why, like I walk away from the experience with a different feeling, and that as compared to working on like the 924 turbo behind me, like it just
Sure.
I walk away feeling like I've accomplished more, even if I did the exact same task.
I feel like
that's not sensible.
A 924 is you do all the maintenance and you're like fingers crossed that it holds out for any amount of time.
The bed.
Agreed. But just simpler times. Shout out to that. And I think the prices, I think right now in a market where things are generally still pretty pricey for anything with an enthusiast following and anything with sporty pretensions, you're going to pay out of pocket a little more. But I think these classic SUVs, I mean, they are recognized, super clean, low mileage ones. Obviously, that's always the case, right? But I'm talking like you can find them, and if you want to put the time in to fix them up, like I've done with this Trooper, and I'm Joe Schmo on the street, just put a little elbow grease, DIY stuff. You can have yourself a damn functional vehicle that literally has no running costs, that costs nothing to insure, that costs nothing to like. I mean, fuel's a little shitty, but whatever. Right. It's just a truck that's going to be there for you. And there's something about that, man. You have to say there's something about old reliable hanging out waiting for you.
That's right. The old reliable.
The old truck.
That's right. And that's the thing. And I think that's what's lost on a lot of the modern SUVs, right? Where it's really modern anything, but on the modern SUV is strayed. I mean, outside of what, like the current like Lexus GX,
Ford Bronco,
4Runner, probably the Bronco to a certain extent. Although you're looking at turbo 6-cylinders and stuff like that.
That's the way everybody's going. The new GX is probably gonna be like that.
Yeah, for sure. But like just the absolute rugged dependability. yeah, I don't know. It's something that is kind of lost on a lot of the new stuff, and that's not what the market commands, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Simple is fun. I'm simple. I'm fun. I mean, come on, guys. It's just dumb it down. It makes it easy. Makes it easy for everybody.
what's the closest? The Forerunner's probably the closest like old timey holdout, right? Like that, or like a Wrangler,
Well, yeah, Wrangler or Forerunner, I agree. I
kind
mean,
of it, right?
the Forerunner had a key instead of a push button up until like 2020. So,
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious if there's a world where in
In a
EV
world.
in a world in SUV in like future EV SUV land,
uh,
if there's a way, because if you think about, in theory, if you think about an EV, it's a pretty basic thing. You got a battery, you got like a controller, and you've got an electric motor.
kind
Like,
of, yeah.
I wonder if there's a world where somebody can like reintroduce the rugged SUV. Like maybe it's all water sealed, and so like you don't even need a snorkel. You just ford rivers. Like you can like I'm curious if there's a way where somebody can be like, hey, let's use this to our advantage. Like we'll have sealed, like just find a way to like go back to the rugged roots of an SUV and make
Mhm.
an EV that is simpler than most current
Yeah, I just don't. Well,
SUVs.
it's besides not having the infrastructure to support that. I mean, these trucks, I could put. It takes regular fuel. I can fuel up anywhere. I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, with the infrastructure, I don't think the EVs are there yet. They're not that adventure seeking.
right.
I can't. You can't throw a bunch of like spare, battery packs on the roof rack, right?
No, but I wonder, there's all this like battery talk hubbub, and yeah, we're probably a decade away from like actual like solid state moving the ball further.
Bounce that,
Uh,
man. We're just gonna stick with internal combustion. We're just gonna stick with it. Just get over it, man.
yeah, yeah, to hell with it. Well, I
Hell
mean,
with it.
when the EMP pulse hits, it's really gonna screw up all those EVs. So
Now he's thinking, folks.
that's right. Exactly. Thermonuclear apocalypse
Yeah,
is what I'm rooting for, frankly.
sure. Yeah.
Any other mentionables that we haven't talked about on the SUV stuff?
I
Like,
think that's it, man. I think we nailed it. I think we did a good job representing some classic ones. And honestly, guys, like I know SUVs are like a joke. Everybody's got one now, but let's go back. Let's revisit the classics for what they are, because they are damn. I think they're damn cool, right? Like I mean, I'm not a barometer of what's cool in automotive culture, but like
got me fooled.
it's as much as cool as an enthusiast weird car, I think a weird like lesser known SUV is still cool, or an early one in great shape is still a showstopper. And like you said, we saw many at Radwood at Cars and Coffees. I tend to be drawn to those too, like regular
Yeah.
cars that are in fantastic condition. I think these old SUVs really check a lot of boxes. So get out there
I,
and get them, because I think we see the value going up probably in the next 10 years or so on these 80s and 90s guys, because scarcity and just finding a clean one. I
yeah, I
see it.
think that's it. I think the value is actually there
Mm-hmm.
if you are like I feel like if you took your Trooper now and sold it on, your favorite online
Auction.
auction site,
Yeah.
um you'll probably do okay, right? Like, yeah,
Oh,
the
I think
mileage is
so.
going to scare some people off, but you might get 7, 8. I don't know. I don't
It's
know what
got
the
a,
value of that car is.
I'd,
Like,
I'd say probably
but
8 or so. Yeah, it's got a new head in it. It's got new
yeah,
tires, all the good stuff,
yeah.
brakes. Looks
So
pretty
I
damn
think,
good.
and so that's not like big value,
No.
but I think if you can get some of this stuff in front of the right eyeballs, people would pay money for it. But
Mhm.
the thing is like I think these diamonds in the rough are easier to find than something like a modified, like a an 80s or 90s Honda in really clean shape,
Sure.
um, or a Celica or a Supra or an E30 BMW. Like those get snatched up instantly. You can still find some of these deals on these SUVs,
Yeah, the price point's
and
approachable for sure.
they might need a little bit of scrubbing and some handiwork and some repairs. But good news, it's easy to do.
Yep.
Uh, it's not hard. It's not a hard heavy lift.
Great
One last,
platform. Great platform to learn on too.
yes,
Amateur wrenching for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. One quick shout out in the world of Mitsubishi, the Pajero, which we never got necessarily.
Mm.
Um, are you familiar with the Pajero Mini?
Yes, I've seen quite a few for sale lately.
Yes. So the Pajero Mini is the K version of the Mitsubishi Pajero. So tiny, 660 cc. They make an in-between one. So there's the Pajero Mini, and you got the Pajero, right, which is
Mhm.
the actual bigly one. In between them is the Pajero Junior, which is the K car one, except they put wheel flares on it, and it's got a wider track, so the axles in the front and rear are a little bit wider. And because it's no longer a K car, they've got a bigger motor. I think they have like an 1100 cc four cylinder
They have
instead
a
of the 660 cc.
they have a turbo variant too, I believe, right?
On
Am
the
I correct on that one?
Mini, the Mini is a turbo variant, so it's a
Okay.
turbo 660 cc's, but it's still like 63
Oh
horsepower.
yeah, yeah.
The bigger ones are more. I don't know what the horsepower. It's probably like 95 horsepower. It's like cooking with gas. But I think that's the one to have. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the right size. I
It's the right
agree.
size because it's still itty bitty. It just has like a wider track and a real powertrain. And people don't know about them, and they're slept on. And you can get one like from an importer for like under 10 grand, easy.
I'm with you
Um,
on that, man, for sure. But let's close it
what's it?
down. We're up against it
Yeah,
for time. We appreciate you guys listening to SUV talk. But
SUV hour.
I hope we proved our point that SUVs can be cool. And next, we're going to move on to a little thing called our automotive print ad quiz game show. I'll explain it to you guys while Frank
Do it.
definitely pulls a turd burglar of an ad up for me. So these are print ads featured in magazines of the times. Eligible are 80s, 90s, and early 2000s cars. Frank is going to read the ad to me, omitting anything that clearly gives away what he's talking about. I have 3 chances to guess what vehicle he is trying to explain, and these ads are all over the place, folks, so it's not always straightforward. But every time I fail, he'll give me a hint, and we'll eventually get there, because, or we won't. Who knows? Frank, are you ready to go with that ad? I'm going to get 10 minutes on the clock for when you're finished reading.
Alrighty, I am ready, sir. And I think this one's kind of easy. I'm just gonna
Oh,
not to screw you over in case you don't get it, but I feel like this is on
thank
the
you.
easier side. But
Okay,
I like the ad, and so we're just gonna run with it.
let's go.
So there's two. There you see, it's almost all text, just like a paragraph. There in the bottom, I don't know, quarter. We've got that famous front quarter image, the wheel
Mm.
turned, the vehicle clad in silver. Um, and then up at the top, it has an engine start, push to start button. And it says, it started with the push of a button. On August 11th, 1964, an ivory white race car bearing the number 20 and the distinctive blank mark came to life at the push of a button and roared around the famed Nürburgring circuit at the German Grand Prix. The 225 horsepower V12 RA271 was a blank original and our initial entry into Formula One competition. Blank, our company founder, loved motorsports and used racing as a testing ground for innovations in design, engineering, and safety that, when perfected on the racetrack, could be applied to the roads and streets of our production models. This forward thinking had greatly inspired generations of engineers and designers, who in turn have responded with some revolutionary firsts: an all aluminum monocoque body, the extraordinary blank engine, and our advanced variable valve timing system, to name a few. When we decided to create this new sports car, we assigned the project to the engineers who build and design our engines for racing. Introducing the blank, the most powerful normally aspirated 4-cylinder vehicle in history. This handcrafted 240 horsepower, 6-speed roadster starts appropriately enough at the push of a button, then goes from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. For more on this amazing machine, push another button and visit our website at. That is the ad, my friend.
Wow. Okay. Let me get a little 10 minutes on the clock.
There we go.
Push button.
Mhm.
Start. Hmm. An interesting history lesson in there too, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
At first, I thought we were talking about a 12-cylinder car, and I was like, my mind was being. I'm like, oh my god, what are we talking about? But I think I know what this one is right from the gate. There's not so many cars that fit that description. It is magical. It is a car where you need to turn a key still or put a key in before you can push the push button. Am I right?
I don't know.
But this is a very special car, and I have some questions actually because I'm not too good on the two different generations. I know a bit that separates them, but what we are talking about is a Honda S2000 AP1 variety. Frank, is that correct?
That is it. Yeah, that is it. So this was like for the launch. So this isn't like this ad probably came out in 2000. And yeah, that's the Honda S2000. Some of the stuff I blanked out was the distinctive H mark. Was
VTEC
like
engine was blanked out as well, right?
No, CVCC engine.
Same, yeah.
Was blanked out. I did blank out. I didn't say blank because I would have extra ruined it. But after it said and our advanced variable valve timing system (parentheses it said VTEC).
That's it.
I didn't say the parentheses part. And then the founder. I didn't say his name.
Oh, that's good. So with the AP2, did the horsepower figure change? Because I know it went from 2 liter to 2.2, and I know in that switchover there was like an SAE adjustment. But did the horsepower change between the two engines or no?
Horsepower did not. I think that the horsepower adjustment maybe made it go from like 240 to like 238 or something, but I think really it's horsepower is unchanged. And then but it was like a 9 or 10 pound-feet of torque bump.
Gotcha.
So torque bumped up, power was a little bit lower in the power band, and instead of redlining at 8,900, it redlined at 8.
Right. I know that part. That's interesting that the power didn't change that much, but
yeah, and that's the goal wasn't to give it more power. The goal was to give it more usable around town low end grunt, which still doesn't have a ton of, but it's it's got enough, and it's a I think the general population agrees that like the AP2 is the better like driving car, and I'm gonna couch that because that's like, oh, what? How dare you? I'm an AP1 truther.
Right.
But the AP1 is probably the more purist car because it was a little bit more unhinged, and it was just that F20C, bouncing it off a 9,000 RPM,
so cool.
like fuel cut or whatever is pretty fantastic. So
that was a special car for Honda. Wasn't that built in the same plant where they did the Insight because it was all aluminum body or whatever?
That was the NSX. I think the Insight was built on the NSX.
I'm crossing them over. But the S2000 was phased in as they're phasing the NSX out. Even though
they overlapped. They overlapped for I
2
think,
years.
Was it 3 years?
NSX last year was 02, right?
I thought it was 03.
Is it?
Either way, a couple of years.
I would venture that there's zero difference between 02, 03, Ecker, NSX.
Yeah, and different like I don't know. I think they were different. Obviously the S2000 was built on more of a budget, but it was still like a very special halo car, like straight up passion project from Honda.
With a Honda badge, nothing had rear wheel drive at that time. It was like Honda's only sports car for sale.
Yeah, in North America anyways.
Yep.
Yeah. S660 we never got.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of it like that though, right? Like everything else was front wheel drive based on an economy car.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so it was a ground up, like this is a sports car from birth in every aspect. I mean, there's not like you would expect that there would have been more part sharing in a Honda product, and there's some, but like it's nothing
much. Yeah.
The entire powertrain and suspension is all bespoke to that car. The chassis itself, it's cool.
Push button starts on the left, right? The left of the steering wheel.
Yeah, and then the key in. You do have the key and turn it, which is silly, but that's
That's cool.
That was hot shit in the early 2000s.
Oh, hell yeah,
Having that
dude.
push button start.
That really
Ooh,
lent
boy.
everybody to do that aftermarket mod where they put wired freaking push buttons into these old cars. Those are like, speaking of red flags, and you go to buy a car, has a push button start. I'm like, nope, because that's going to leave me stranded someday. 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
man, the S2000, what an absolute gem.
Yeah, so I thought you nailed it. I mean, I thought it was kind of easy, but like I like the history and like
Good
they really
history.
speak to like, hey, like this is kind of a special car. And yeah, like that was the thing. It was the most highest specific output, horsepower per liter um, of a production car when they came out.
Not so much with the torque, but
no, not with the twerks, but with the ponies. So
that's a big number.
yeah, fun car, fun ad. I don't know. It was a layup, but you nailed it.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you very much.
What else have you been nailing? And I don't want you to get into your nightlife. More like what nails are sticking up that you're hitting with a hammer there in the garage? What squeaky wheel is getting the grease? What's your PCP situation like?
Yes, my project car progress for the week. Trooper again. So you can see behind me there is light reflecting in it. I'll paint a picture for everybody. And what was once described as a pink chalk paint job, it is now a red shiny paint job. It's so much cutting, polishing, compound polish, and waxing. My friend, my DA polisher took about 10 years off its life, running it for like 8 to 9 hours, basically, to get this job done. It takes a long time to do this kind of work, but that paint was gone. It was literally gone. So I brought it all the way back. It's considerably thinner now, but shinier. And I was actually shocked. I was super shocked now that the truck looks like this. It looks like a completely different vehicle. And it wasn't just that. I got a lot of other stuff taken care of. I took the paint on the bumpers all the way down because they're almost like faded gray, miserable. Yeah. One of them had taken a big hit on the back, so I used a sledgehammer and some pry bars and straightened that out. And now they're nice and nice satin black, looking pretty new from the factory. The windshield wiper arm, same way, super corroded. Did all that kind of stuff. Even the skid plates. I think the skid plates. This car has like thick steel skid plates from the factory. Of course it does. And redid those. And then bulbs were out. In modern cars, there's only so many different types of bulbs. Just in the rear lights of this truck, there are 6 different bulb sizes. Oof. So I replaced, it didn't have any reverse lights, come to find out. The driving parking lights weren't working, and some parking lights in the front. So I replaced all the headlights and taillight section with different bulbs. Kind of hard to source some of these weird bulbs too. And it's all illuminated now. It's looking good. I'm kind of scared I ruined the truckiness of the Trooper by making it look nice and function.
You've shown it love, and now it's going to show you love back, right? Like
that's
how
hope,
this works.
I hope that's reciprocated. Absolutely. But yeah, just really super happy. A lot of elbow grease, but dude, I can't be happier. This truck's finished, and it's just it's a gem. I love the damn thing. So that's what I've been doing for PCP. How about you, man?
I did it. I got rid of a car.
I
got rid of a car.
Who the fuck is this guy?
Almost.
Okay, this guy. Now I know you.
I've gotten rid of the car. The car has just not gotten rid of me. Honda Civic Hybrid. So I'll try and make it pseudo brief here. The Honda Civic Hybrid. So it was having the issue with there were 2 issues I was going to resolve before getting rid of it. One was the AC compressor went out. The death rattle finally just turned into silence. Thankfully, it didn't just like yeet the pulley when it did that. So I actually don't know if it was like the compressor itself or the clutch on the pulley that was knocking. But it's whatever it is, it's dead. It ain't working anymore. But I have the replacement part, so I was gonna like swap it. It was kind of a pain in the junk to do. You got to kind of have it on a lift to do it properly, because you got to pull it out from underneath. And so I was just like, screw it. I'm just gonna sell it with the part included. Let the next guy sort it out. On to the next one. But like I got to get it to pass smog, and get it past smog. I get rid of the nagging check engine light that was been coming and going. That's right. With the secondary air. Basically the vent valve on the vapor canister underneath the car. It was throwing a code for stuck shut. So I pulled it all apart, cleaned it up. I bench tested that solenoid. It tested as okay. So I just compressed air, blew out all the lines just in case there was a spider web clogging up the works or something. Put it all back together. I had cleared it, and then the light came back. I was like, screw it. This time I was like, I'm just gonna sell it. I'll disclose it. Let me go get it smogged because I can within like a one window. I cleared it. It was throwing the pending code for it, but no check engine light yet, and all the other monitors set except for the evap. In California, you can get it by without doing the evap.
That's
So I
right.
took it over there in like a couple of mile window before it decided it was going to throw the code again. And as I'm driving there, the pending code goes away and the evap monitor sets. And I'm like, I did it! You crazy son of a bitch! You did it! And it just like it was gone. So I went, I smogged it. I kept driving it around. It never came back. I put a bunch more miles on it. It was done. Problem solved. Hey, like my fix actually did work. Cool. So put it up online. I had a bunch of people interested in it pretty much straight away. I ended up negotiating with this kid who was going to be his daily driver. He used to have another Civic hybrid with a manual. He sold it. He regrets that he sold it because you can't find another one.
Right.
And so yeah, we negotiated $3,700, which is kind of under market, but not that bad. They actually don't have a ton of value. Like they're for sale for like $2,500 all day, but they all have like over 200,000 miles.
Yep.
And selling a car without AC in summer,
yeah,
problematic.
Tough
So I
sale.
was like $3,700. That's fair. I was gonna try and get 4. And I was like $300 is worth for me to not have to deal with it anymore.
Right.
Here's money. Everything's great. Kid drives off. Everything's hunky dory. This was at like 5 o'clock at night. 9 o'clock at night, I get a text message. She's like, cool. And it's just an image of that fault code again on his scanner. I was like, God damn it. Like what? I was like, did it throw a check engine light on you? He's like, yeah. I was like, it did that. I thought I had fixed it. Apparently I didn't, but it should be fixed. Like it had fixed itself. Like this should be something that's not intermittent. Like it either is there or it's not. And it was gone, and it pending code cleared on its own. I didn't even re-clear it.
Right.
It passed smog. I drove it a bunch. You drove it. Everything was fine, and now it's not. So I said, I'm not going to leave you in a lurch. Don't worry. I was like, I think it's either only the fuel pressure sensor, the fuel tank pressure sensor, is screwy, and that's built into the charcoal canister, or there's a broken something's off in the harness. I don't know. I was like, I'm gonna go pick and pull. I'm gonna see if I can find another full charcoal canister. I will take it apart. I will clean it up. I will blow it out. I will bench test everything, and then I will bring it to you. The guy lives in Fremont. I was like, I'll bring it to you. Like
Nice.
So I was able to get the pick and pull $24. Got the full with the sub harness and everything too. It's got a small, I don't know, 2-foot sub harness.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So if there's something screwy in that sub harness, I have the harness, and I'm just gonna clean it up, bench test it, bring it to him, be like, here's your warranty work, homie. Like, it's not hard to put in. It's like one harness plug, 4 bolts. Have at it. And yeah, and hopefully that does it because I don't want to deal with it anymore. So it's gone, but it's still haunting me. But I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm not trying to burn this kid.
Yeah, I mean, we buy a lot of cars too, so it's really important. Like we're the same. I'm very transparent about issues. Anything I sell, usually I put like too many hours of maintenance into the cars to have issues. But in case there is something nagging, like the 300ZX fuel thing read a little bit off on the fuel gauge, and it's we pay it forward, right? We release that information because when we buy a car, we hope people are being transparent with us as well. So it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I could have told the kid to kick rocks, but like for
as
me,
is
like,
sale is as is.
Yeah, spending an hour at pick and pull and $24, and then just like I'll spend less than an hour getting it cleaned up, bench testing it, clearing everything out, pulling the sensor out, making sure that the little port for the sensor's clean, putting it all back, and just giving it to the kid. Even if I have to drive to Fremont, like I'll find some work thing to do down in Fremont where like I can cross pollinate it and make it eventful. But yeah, so hopefully I'll hand this part off. I'll tell the kid, hey, swap this thing out. Good news, it already passed smog. You've got between now and 2 years from now to like get around to doing this.
Right.
Up to you, homie.
You did the right thing, man. Why don't you take us home, man?
Take us on home. Bring it on home. That's it. Thanks for putting up with us. We're closing in on 100 of these freaking episodes. I don't know what. I don't. Should we have some magical guest? Should we do a podcast from some crazy event? Like, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to celebrate our 100th. Maybe we just quit. Maybe we just do 100
Yeah.
and then burn this mother down.
I'm down. Down.
Yeah. But we do it like horribly. Like we just spout off just truly terrible, cancelable things, and just like we
Cash in all our sponsors.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait. What?
Huh? Yeah. We build them up to break it down. That's what we'll do. We'll just burn
Yes,
this
sir.
thing down. We'll get
Burning
canceled.
bridges. Burning bridges.
It. So thank you guys for and gals for being a part of that. And I look forward to burning this bad boy down with you guys in tow. So continue to listen. We do appreciate it. Thank you for all of that. If you're not watching on the YouTubes, watch on the YouTubes. You can do that. That's a thing you can do. Bug us on our Instagram, which is pseudo abandon. Send us messages. Send us dirty notes, whatever you want to do. Send us inappropriate photos, whatever. Get a hold of us. Communicate. We will message back. I almost promise. And then if you want to find what I'm up to, that's the photographer's garage. Some of the YouTubes, some of the scramgrams. How about you, good Chadwick, sir?
Much like the topic of today's shows, like the Isuzu Trooper I talked about, you can find my rescues, restorations, and reviews on my YouTube channel, Auto Obsessive Garage, and on Instagram as well. So swing by, check it out. And from the bottom of our hearts and the top of our farts, we thank you guys for listening in.
From the bottom of our colon, apparently.
Yes, somewhere in between.
That's exactly a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Guys. Take care as always.